A reading from 1 John chapter 3, verses 1 through 2, 18 through 23. See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God. And so we are. We are beloved. We are God's children now. And what we will be has not yet appeared. Little children, let us not love in word or talk about in deed and in truth. But this we shall know, that we are of the truth, and reassure our heart before him. For whenever our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart, and God knows everything. Beloved, if our heart does not condemn us, we have confidence before God, and whatever we ask, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments and do what pleases him. And this is his commandment, that we believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
As Scripture tells us, we are called God's children, God's beloved. So to you this day, I say grace and love to you, God's children. From the God who loves us so much, we can call him Father. Martin Luther has written one of his statements about the piece of scripture that I just read, and this is what Martin Luther has to say about that. To love a brother who is kind and pleasant in return, this is a trivial matter. This is the way the world also loves. The crowd judges friendships by their usefulness. But according to John, this is not what he says. Let us love those who are saintly, agreeable, and rich. No, he says, let us love the brethren in such a way that nothing but the brotherhood is loved and regarded. For a brother is loved out of a sense of duty, not because of usefulness and not because of praise. All the gifts we have should serve those who have not them. For example, he who is learned should serve him who is not learned. And he who is rich should serve him who is poor. He who is sensible should serve him who is foolish. In the past 3 weeks, the world has changed for me. The one place that I had always thought of as a refuge, not just for me, but for all of God's children, was desecrated by murder and gunfire. I know our church buildings are just brick and mortar. There's nothing special about an empty church made of brick and mortar. It's when it is filled with God's children that it becomes special, that it becomes sacred, that it becomes a refuge. It's what happens inside and outside of those brick and mortar walls that make us church. If our building were to go away tomorrow, Mount of Olives would still exist. Not through these walls, not through this building, but because of the people that reside inside this building. When my mom died at 3:30 on that Sunday morning in November of 2006, I knew this is where I needed to be at 9 a.m. that morning. I needed to be in a place where I would find love, consolation, and my family. This congregation. This sanctuary became a safe haven from the hurt of losing my mom
so unexpectedly. In this place, I heard the words of God's comfort. I was home, and I was comforted here by God and family. I was comforted by embraces from friends who loved me and shared in my grief. This is space where our son was baptized and where Ron and I renewed our 10th wedding anniversary vows. To me, this is supposed to be a sacred space. And I'm sure that was the case for Pastor Pinckney and all his congregants. That church building was more than just a building. They celebrated life there. They cried and grieved for each other there. They rejoiced at baptisms and weddings. They watched the children grow and bring their children into that building. They found comfort and love and God's embrace in that building. They never expected any harm would come to them in their beloved place of worship. Just 4 days after the shootings, AME was back in business, loving each other, comforting one another, hearing God's words of grace and love and mercy and forgiveness. And they loved and they forgave their brother. John's words we hear today were acted out on June 21st as they worshiped together with brothers and sisters of every shape and size and color. They came together as community, found forgiveness for Mr. Roof, and it came from deep in their hearts. This day, asked to be celebrated by our presiding bishop, Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, and by our own Bishop Jim Goyna. This today is a day about repenting, turning back from whatever it is that has caused us to sin, to turn from that sin that causes us to hurt others, intentionally or not. Today is a day to ask for forgiveness for ourselves and for the hurt that we have caused, and to ask for forgiveness to those who have hurt us and we have failed to forgive them. For when we hold on to all that hurt and all that sin, we cannot move forward. We cannot love ourselves. And if we can't love ourselves, how are we to love others? And God does command that we love ourselves and we love others. This day is also a day about mourning. Mourning the loss of the sanctity of our churches where we thought we would be safe from outside harm. Mourning not just the 9 brothers and sisters killed in Emmanuel, but mourning for Mr. Roof and for his family. And mourning for the congregation he and his family attends. So much was lost that night when those shots rang out in that prayer meeting. Perhaps now that night has caused us to lose our innocence. To lose our innocence to strangers who come among us and enter our doors. Will we now become leery of those same strangers who have asked to join us? Do we mourn our loss of innocence? Do we mourn the fact that in the year 2015 we are still afraid of each other, though we are all called children of God? Do we mourn our inability to let others live as they choose, no matter the color of their skin, their political affiliation, who they choose to love? Do we mourn that we can't play nice in the sandbox with each other? I think this is a mourning about reconciliation. Instead of turning away from, that we turn towards what frightens us and we move forward towards it. To acknowledge our differences, those differences are and to make no judgments to each other about who we are. This is the time for us to step up and speak up and be God's children and act like God's children, standing up for the other, to do his work, and to stand up for the different and for the misunderstood. Now is the time. Where is the place? God never promised us that to do his work would be easy, without peril, without self-sacrifice. And to begin to do God's work, it all starts with proclaiming the love of God for all his children. In the current climate of this country and of the world, Luther's words about this piece of scripture might sting. It might hit too close to our hearts, or it might make us step back and think. As we continue to hear news about the shootings at Mother Emanuel AME Church, and as we hear that the suspected killer is one of our own, a child of God brought up in the ELCA faith, as we hear about churches being burnt, we must wonder, has John's words been lost to the ages? Have we stepped so far away from scriptures, God's inspired words, that we have forgotten how to love, who to love, and why we love? Have we lost our sensibility of what it means to love one another as God first loved and loves us? Have our hearts been derailed by the hate we see in the news, what we read about on social media, the YouTube videos that demonstrate just how much we hate each other? Have we forgotten what it means to love the others, our others? What it looks like to love our others? And something most important to remember is we are the others to the others. This week, I ask you to think about how you love. Is it for what you receive from those you love that makes you love them? Is it what you can give to those you love that makes you love them? Or is it a nice mixture of both? And ask yourself, why is it or what is it that keeps you from loving some others? Those answers are between you and God. Just love as God taught us and demonstrate the God's love that he has given to each of us. Be kind to one another. Love each other. And most importantly, we need to pray for one and for another. Amen.